All right, welcome to Words of Wisdom. This is going to be a segment that we put out on YouTube and possibly even Facebook. We might have a couple clips here and there on Instagram as well. Um, these words of wisdom, it's not going to be anything that comes from myself. This is going to be things that come from various evangelists, pastors, could just be lay preachers, could just be a statement that I've heard here or there from biblically sound, tried and true men of God. And some of these statements, they're going to be a little bit controversial even in the independent fundamental Baptist realm, and we're not going to talk about things such as, oh, give up your King James Bible. I mean, I have my King James Bible right in front of me, and the day that I'll get out of the ministry is the day that I put down my King James Bible and go pick up another version. So we're not talking about controversial things like that. We're going to talk about controversial things such as working together. We're going to talk about controversial things such as our motivation. We're going to talk about all sorts of things in this words of wisdom category. And I really would like to highlight my first post in words of wisdom with my pastor growing up, Pastor Jim Reeves. Brother Jim Reeves, who's the pastor of State Line Baptist Church. He is the pastor of State Line Baptist Church, and he was my pastor from 2010 to 2021. And I've known Pastor Jimmy for I would probably say the good portion of my life. I've been over to, not to his new house, but I've been over to his old house before. He took me fishing on my birthday every once in a while. I'd go out and we would go out and grab food. We would go soul winning together. And I remember sitting in my office. I remember sitting in his office as a 13-year-old boy and just real heartbroken about where I was in my life and knowing that I wasn't in the will of God, and he looked at me and he put in the principle that statement in the Bible that says, "Let no man despise thy youth." And he looked at me and he said, "Jeff, what's God called you to do in your life?" And I'm 13 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, man, why would he ask me this? And he showed me that verse, and he said, "Jeff, you're not too young to serve the Lord. What is God calling you to do in your life?" And God had been working out with me on this deal of preaching, and I remember I looked at him, I said, "Pastor, God's called me to preach." And he looked at me and he didn't say, "Well, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate that call." He didn't say, "Well, we're going to call the deacons together and we're going to talk about this call." And he said he was going to pray for me, but he didn't just leave it there at prayer. He said, "Well, I'll pray for you, but why aren't you doing it?" And I love Pastor Jim Reeves. He is a staple of the old-time religion in the Rising Sun and Oxford area where he pastors. He is the founder of the Mid-Atlantic Church Planting Ministry of State Line Baptist Church. And I absolutely love I still consider him my pastor. And I remember when I went off to Bible college, I made a little bit of a speech, and I said, no matter where I am in ministry, whether or not I stay in Maryland, and God's called me out of the state of Maryland to New England, but I made this statement that said, no matter where God has called me, Brother Jim Reeves will always, in my head, be my pastor. And he's been like a family member to me, and I love him dearly. And I want to give this statement that he made. I remember we were in the car one time, or actually we were in his truck, and we were coming out from soul winning down in Kent County, Maryland, and he made this statement. He said, "Wouldn't it be great if a bunch of area churches could put aside minor differences and work collectively to win souls, plant churches, and grow people?" Wouldn't it be great if a bunch of area churches could put aside minor differences and work collectively to win souls, plant churches, and grow people? Now, this quote, if we're being serious and if we're being honest, in the independent fundamental Baptist realm, it might stir a couple feathers, because we're thinking in our heads, man, me work with you? And but let me read you a verse in Philippians chapter number 4 and verse number 3. It says, "I entreat thee also, true yokefellow, help those women which labored with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and with other my fellow laborers, whose names are in the book of life. Remember, we are to be true yoke fellows. We are to be fellow laborers in the ministry. Now notice in Philippians chapter number 4 and verse number 3, it doesn't say, go over there and help those women which labored with me in the gospel with Clement also and with others, my fellow laborers, whose names are in the church that I attend. It doesn't say whose names are in the church that I'm sent out of. It doesn't say the names who are graduates of the college that I attended. It says whose names are in the book of life. Now note, and put a little sidebar here, that this is not a words of wisdom post that's going to promote ecumenicalism. If you know anything about me, man, I hate ecumenicalism. Ecumenicalism, that is the act when a Bible-believing church is going to yoke up with an assembly that does not believe in things like salvation by grace through faith, biblical baptism, personal soul winning, pastoral authority, fundamental preaching, and things like the King James Bible. We're not talking about ecumenicalism, which promotes false doctrine. The Bible says, Amos 3:3, how can two walk together except they be agreed? Man, I'm not going to go out with a Catholic and expect to go win souls. I'm not going to go out in fellowship with those nut jobs who are going over and they have this misinterpretation of speaking in tongues, and I'm not going to go over there and fellowship with those people. But I'm going to tell you right now, why is it that I can't go to a Baptist church down the road who believes in the King James Bible, who believes in personal soul winning, who believes in church planting, and man, they can dot their T's and cross their I's the same way that I dot my T's or dot my I's and cross my T's, and why is it that we can't go out and collectively work with them to further the gospel ministry? Why is it that we have, I remember when I was at State Line Baptist Church, and I'm not calling out any of the churches in the area. I know many of the churches. I know many of the pastors. I'm friends with them, and I can fellowship with them. But why is it that we can have, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 churches in the area, and we don't have a day where we just come together and say, hey, if you win someone over there, yeah, you can bring them over to your church, man, send them over. I don't care what it is. Why can't we just go out and have a day where we go out and go soul winning? Why is it that we can't have a day where we try to stir the waters of revival together? Man, we might fellowship with this church down the street once or twice a year for a conference. We might go to a youth meeting. We might go to a revival meeting. Hey, we might be friendly with the pastor on Facebook, but hey, we neglect to personally serve together. See, notice to be a fellow laborer, to be a true yoke fellow, you have to willingly enter into a yoke together. It has to be personal. The oxen doesn't get yoked up unless it's going to go out to work. Why is it that we come together and we stand side by side, but sometimes we're not yoked together in service? How many more souls would be saved? Hey, how many more lives would be changed? Hey, how many church doors may stay open because we decided to collectively get in the harvest together? And and this might be a little bit controversial as well, and I understand we have bigger towns and cities and things like that than we did in prior times. But if you note in the Bible, our churches were noted by the towns that they were from. Giving you an example, the church in Galatia, the church in Thessalonica, the church in Philippi. We had a church, a body of believers that was in a certain area working together, and the members would work together. So why is it that I can't go to a town in Maryland that has 4 churches and say, hey, we all believe the same thing? I'm not saying we're going to go join the churches together and combine membership. But hey, I'm just saying, why can't we just come together and win souls together? Why do we have to be in competition? Why is it that a member of one church that believes the same thing as the member of another church, why is it that member can get disgruntled and then move over to this church and man, just think nothing of it? Man, why aren't we working together? Why can't we just put some of these minor things aside? We're not talking about doctrine. We're not talking about biblical separation. Man, we're talking about minor differences. This church has Wednesday night soul winning, and this church has Thursday night soul winning. Man, why can't we have a collective day on once a month and just say, hey, why don't we take these 5 churches, these 6 churches, whatever might be in the area, and just have a day in fellowship together and win souls together, and man, get in the service together. You know, the Bible says the harvest surely is plenteous, but the laborers are few. And I wonder if sometimes the laborers are few because we don't want to labor with some of the other people who desire to labor in the field. You know, it can be done. And that's actually going to be another set of words of wisdom from the pastor of the church we work with right now, Dr. George Anderson. That's going to be the next words of wisdom. Just that phrase, it can be done. But it can be done working together. It can be done. I've seen this personally in the state of Rhode Island, working with Brother John Barnes. My wife and I went up there, and you know, we always hear about how New England can be kind of hard up with the gospel and how the churches are hard. But can I tell you, I saw many churches come together in an effort to win souls, grow people, revive that area, and see churches started. It can be done. And we're not talking about building a kingdom within. I want to give you an example. Me and my wife, we went soul winning for a couple days with this family. The last name was the Plant family, and the Plants, they would drive their car, and there was this sweet older couple, probably in their mid-60s, and they were from Longview, Texas. Longview, Texas, and they're over in Portsmouth. No, sorry, not Portsmouth, in Providence, Rhode Island. Texas to Rhode Island. They're not winning souls and then telling those souls, hey, let's go over here and we're going to get a plane ticket and we're going to take you back to Emmanuel Baptist Church. No, friend, they're not doing that. They're saying, hey, here's a church in this area. Hey, we're working with them. Why don't you get in and get plugged in? And that's how it ought to be. We're not building a kingdom within, we're building a kingdom without. It is truly words of wisdom from my pastor, Brother Jim Reeves, to work together. This has been Words of Wisdom. Jim Reeves, wouldn't it be great if a bunch of churches could put minor differences aside and work collectively to win souls, plant churches, and grow people? Not ecumenicalism, biblical fellowship and biblical laborship. Thank you for watching.